أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسمه سبحانه وإن من شيء إلا يسبح بحمده الحمد لله الذي نور قلوب المؤمنين بنور الإيمان أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلوات الله وسلامه عليه اللهم صل على سيدنا حبيبنا محمد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. In my presentation, I remove the discussion on positive action because you've heard lots of those, especially from the first speakers. And I will directly proceed how these positive actions are being applied in the Philippines. The title of my presentation is the Rısale-ı movement or community and its advent in the Philippines, a case of positive action. Maybe some of us are wondering where the Philippines is located. It is located in Southeast Asia, and it is the one of the two countries in Asia which is the majority inhabitants are Roman Catholic, and Muslims, or also known as Moros or Bangsamoros, are minority in that country. Just to contextualize, I'd like to begin from a historical background of the Muslims in the Philippines, or the Muslims in the Philippines are also known as Bangsamoros. Now, the coming of Islam was introduced in Mindanao because Philippines has three main group of islands. We have Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. And Islam was first introduced in Mindanao. In fact, there is a theory that the term Mindanao is coming from Arabic Min Danao. It was in 12th century, through the coming of Muslim traders and missionaries coming from the Middle East, coming from our neighboring islands in Southeast Asia. In fact, by the time that the Spaniards came in the Philippines was already in the stage of rapid Islamization. That most of the historians and other scholars are saying that if the coming of the Spaniards was only delayed for 50 years, we could have tell a different story that today Philippines is a Muslim country like that of our neighboring countries. Now, the Spanish colonial period began in 1521 until 1898. And the Muslims in the Philippines, or the Bangsamoros, we resisted that period. You will see that our historical background is full of negative actions. We resisted during the Spanish colonial time for more than 300 years, and then the American came. That was in 1899 to 1946, and we resisted again. In fact, there is a study that since 1968 until today, there are almost 300,000 Muslims who were killed in the war between the government and the Muslim rebel groups in the Philippines. Then the Japanese period, 1942 to 1945, and finally when the Philippine Republic was created in 1946, the Muslims in the Philippines, the Bangsamoros, were integrated in the Philippine government without our consent. And then here comes the martial law period in 1972, wherein Muslims suffered a lot. There were lots of massacres recorded from 1968 to the early part of 1980s. And then in 2000 to 2003, all-out war against the Muslims was declared. And at the time, the Rısale-ı movement entered in the Philippines. So you will observe that the movement entered in the Philippines when the tensions between the government and the Muslim rebel groups in the Philippines were very high. So you will see full of negative actions. In the context of the Muslims in the Philippines, usually Muslim organizations have emphasis more on political and militant Islam. And it is very interesting when Rısale-ı Nur came because its emphasis is more on positive action. Now, yes, the Muslims in the Philippines were formerly independent people, and we became integrated in the Philippines without our consent. And today, we are part of the victims of, we are victims of government discrimination. In fact, I would like to ask for your prayer that my city, Marawi City, is under siege. There is war now, and include us in your prayer. Since it began since May 23, until today, it is still going on between the forces of the government and a group claiming to be affiliated with the Islamic states, with ISIS. And there are already more than 1,000 civilians who are killed. Now, the entry of the Rısale-ı Nur in the Philippines, it was in the height of the tensions between the Philippine government and the Muslim rebel groups. That was all-out war. In 2001, it was during one of the symposiums in Malaysia that the Rısale-ı Nur students, particularly Ustad Ihsan Qasim, met one of the high-ranking Muslim scholars in the Philippines, Mufti Mukhtar T. Abidin. So it was very emotional because at the time we were facing all-out war. In fact, the records that I got during that meeting was very emotional in the sense that the Sheikh Mukhtar was inviting the Rısale-ı Nur to come because he believed this is what we need. No, Rısale-ı Nur is what we need. In the Philippine context, we say we need Rısale-ı Nur more than we need rice, not bread, because for us bread is used for we eat during snack, but what we eat in regular meal is rice. So that was in 2001. When the Rısale-ı Nur movement in Turkey sent Rısale-ı Nur students in the Philippines, that was in 2003, the Sheikh already passed away. The Sheikh already passed away, Mukhtar T. Abidin. So that was in 2003, 2 years after the meeting with Mukhtar T. Abidin, 2 young Rısale-ı Nur students were sent to the Philippines, Muhammad Riza Abe and Adam Akar. Now, one of the important things done in the Philippines is the establishment of the Rısale-ı Nur Institute of the Philippines. Rısale-ı Nur Institute of the Philippines. It is an attempt to institutionalize the activities of the movement in the Philippines. In order for the movement to institutionalize their activities, they establish an institution in which all the activities are centered in that institute. At the beginning, the coverage of the institute was only in Mindanao, but later on, it became Philippines because there are many new converts, many Christian Filipinos or non-Muslims who are entering in the fold of Islam, especially in Luzon and Visayas. In fact, I have witnessed many non-Muslims in Darsane converting to Islam since 2006, since when I became involved with the movement. This is a picture when the institute was opened. Now we have Abdullah Yanabe and one of our Muslim scholars in Mindanao, Mahid Mutilan, but he already passed away. May Allah bless his soul. And also Abdullah Yanabe. And then the other one, part of positive action of the movement in the Philippines, is the integration of the Rısale-ı Nur to the educational curriculum in Muslim Mindanao. Now, in Muslim Mindanao, in different higher education institutions, part of the curriculum is the teaching of the Rısale-ı Nur, Alhamdulillah. And we produce some textbooks wherein in line with the context of Mindanao, while at the same time according to the thought of Ustad Bediüzzaman Said Nursi. Because the commissioner of the Commission on Higher Education in Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, she herself is also a reader of the Rısale-ı. And another is, we have dersanes in the Philippines today. We have around 10 dersanes in the Philippines. And what is peculiar or unique in the dersanes in the Philippines is that we are open for non-Muslims to come to stay with us. Now, this is very important because it didn't happen in the past. Most of the Muslim organizations in the Philippines are very exclusive. They are very exclusive with the Muslims. But here comes the Rısale-ı with this positive action that even the non-Muslims could stay, could live side by side with the Muslims. And there are many good stories when I was doing my research, interviewing those non-Muslims who were able to stay in Dersani. And they have very beautiful stories. And many of them, alhamdulillah, they see the nur, they see the light, they see the guidance in the fold of Islam. So I have some pictures here of our dersanes in the Philippines. Not that big dersanes, but it's a seed. No, it's a seed, and it has a capacity to grow. Alhamdulillah. Now, another important thing, positive action that we are doing in the Philippines is our involvement with the Muslim-Christian interfaith dialogue. Most of the Muslim organizations in the Philippines are not open with the interfaith dialogue. And alhamdulillah, with the coming of the Rısale-ı Jama'ah, we are very much involved with interfaith dialogue. And this is very important because our involvement with interfaith dialogue can reduce the tension between the Muslims and the Christians. And another thing, we've organized also international symposium in the Philippines. The first one was in 2007, and it was followed by another one in 2009. Another important positive action that we are doing in the Philippines is the establishment of Eternity Publication. Eternity Publication is the first Islamic publication in a Christian majority country, and that is the Philippines. Since 2006, the movement is involved with the international book fairs, like in Manila. And we are the only booth, with Islamic books. And very interesting, there are Christians who are even converting in the Islamic booth of the Rısale-ı in the international book fair. So we are doing translations, because in the Philippines we have more than 100 ethnic dialects, and some of the major dialects, we are translating, part of Rısale-ı into those dialects. Alhamdulillah. And I have, this is a recent picture of my city, of Marawi. We have 2 dersanes in that city. And now, if you go to the nearby cities wherein there are dersanes, now dersane are full of refugees and IDPs coming from Marawi City. Let's say, for example, Sister Dersane in Iligan City, a nearby city in Marawi, is full now of children who are internally displaced or refugees. Now, why I connect with the issue in Marawi is that most of those students who encountered Rısale-ı are not involved with the violent extremism young people. So with that, I can see that the positive action of the Rısale-ı in the Philippines are very successful. Those students who encountered or who were able to visit their sanis, they are totally not connected, or they have nothing to do with the violent extremism that are, emerging in the Philippines. Now, yes, we always say this one in the Philippines. We need Rısale-ı more than we need rice, and not bread, because bread is only for snack. Rice is for regular meal. And as a conclusion, the Rısale-ı in the Philippines lacks a program for the establishment of a Muslim for the Bangsamoro, for the Muslims. But it seeks to enable and materialize a fully and authentically Islamic style wherever Muslims in the Philippines may live. And for this reason, may actually be without resorting to use of violence of any sort. Now, Rısale-ı is becoming like a bridge between the Muslims and the non-Muslims, because it is non-violent. The movement, the Rısale-ı movement, could thus turn out to be viable and effective response to the non-Muslim Filipinos and the government of the Philippines, because it never countenances the use of violence, never goes on the offensive against the apparatus of the Philippine state, always grounds in its argument in eradicating ignorance, poverty, and conflict without the instrument of education, with the instrument of education, industry, and unity. Thank you for your time. Always include us in your dua. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Thank you very much, brother.